Hello and welcome to another episode of Startup Hustle Middle East. Today we have Marwan Abdelaziz with us. He is the co-founder of Ureed, which is the region's largest freelancer platform where you can connect with different kinds of freelancers and hire them on an hourly or a project-long basis. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. Welcome, Marwan, to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So Marwan, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Ureed and how it works.
Sure. So previously, like a couple of months ago, we used to pronounce it Ureed, but we realized that was a major issue when it comes to how people read it. But we were surprised because everyone was calling it Uber, not Uber. But we ended up changing actually how we pronounce it in all of our ads and all of our communication to Ureed. Thank you for doing that right. Ureed.com actually is, like you said, a freelancers marketplace. Surprisingly, Ureed started back in 2017. And it started as an internal project in a different company called Tarjama, which is the largest language service provider. And the reason they started this company was that they had more demand that they can fulfill. And back in 2017, the region wasn't really acquainted to the use of freelancers or contractors for that matter. So they basically started this internal department and built like a small form and a website to source translators because they had a huge amount of demand, huge amount of language players that they need to deal with, and they definitely couldn't hire, hundreds of people. So they decided at that stage, let's build something and have our own supply, and then use this supply to fulfill all the unmet demand that we have in the market. Fast forward 2 years down the line, they found that to be an extremely effective strategy to manage their bottom line, right? They were able to fulfill hundreds of requests on a weekly and a monthly basis, work with hundreds and hundreds of clients across the region, and have basically an unmatched access to talent. So they decided to take it up a notch. And by that time, I was part of the Tarjama team. So I decided to quit Tarjama completely, and I spun off with my co-founder, Rakan Hassan. We spun off Ureed completely as a separate company. And our mandate was whatever worked for translation copywriting, we need to replicate it for other service verticals. Because I started back in January working on this full time, talked to many different clients that we have, whether in e-commerce, insurance, startups, and so on. And we found that they are looking for a more comprehensive set of services. They're not looking exclusively for, let's say, translation or writing. No, they want the full thing. If they have a document, they want it designed, translated, edited, and even written into HTML. So we decided to open up for more verticals. And at that time, I had a very close relationship with the guys at Nabish. So we decided to consolidate. And that was a major driver for us to access all those verticals. Nabish is the oldest freelance marketplace. They've been in the region forever, and they have an amazing set of talent on board. They have over 120,000 users on their platform. So consolidation made sense because we had access to many enterprise clients that were craving this kind of service, and we had all the systems and the processes in place to be able to vet and select the right talent for customers. And they had an amazing set of talent. So we combined those both capabilities, and we launched, I think back in August, we launched very recently all of our new verticals, including like design, development, software engineering, all of its even financial services, accounting, and so on. Mm-hmm. And so far, we had tremendous success. We're seeing a huge spike in applications. More freelancers, they want to join because they feel like this became a much bigger force than what it used to be. Because right. All of those smaller marketplaces existed for a very long time in the Middle East, but there was no clear winner. And by the way, until now, there is no clear winner. We're still going at it, and I think we'll never stop improving. Mm-hmm. And they started to feel like there is more opportunity since COVID hit. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people were looking for alternate sources because of underemployment. Like some people already had jobs, but not enough hours or enough pay to support themselves. So we're seeing a lot of people moving towards this direction, and I think it came in the perfect time. So that is like a more broad point of view. I'm happy to delve more into the details on how we reached this point.
Okay. So what is your background? I see that you're into digital strategy, digital marketing. That's your background. So could you give us a little bit of your history, your background?
So, sure. And I've been fascinated with anything related to digital since a very young age. Funny enough, I did not study anything remotely related to digital. I studied actually supply chain, operations management, and stuff like this. And then back in college, I started developing this, interest for technology and digital and stuff like that. I started working a lot of like side gigs, funny enough, freelance work related to like web design, writing like simple HTML websites and stuff like this. And then by the time I graduated college, I moved to Saudi Arabia and I started working as a digital designer. And a lot of people confuse this because digital designers, they're not actual design, they're not graphic designers. This job requires a lot of understanding of how users behave online, and then you design interfaces that basically fits this narrative. And I think back in 2010 in Saudi Arabia, there wasn't a concept called UX UI. That actually never I never came across this term at that time. And I was working with the really major organizations in Saudi, from government to private sector, on evolving the digital touch points. And then later on, I moved to a VC that is a Jordan-based VC, and my job was in Saudi Arabia, and they had a huge portfolio companies that I helped them with their digital strategy, UX, UI, and all of that stuff. And then I spent around 2.5 years with this company, and I met such amazing people in the industry. That was my first tried in, let's say, entrepreneurship. And this role felt very related to entrepreneurship. And I'll come back to this point later. And then I moved to a global agency based out of Dubai. I worked on a big Saudi-based telecom company for 2 years almost, where I helped them a lot in things related to digital strategy, customer acquisition, communication. So I touched upon how to, get to a customer. Generally, that was their biggest mandate: how to reach customer, convince them of your brand, get them to do a certain transaction, and that was a big inspiration for me at Ureed as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that seems like a great set of skills for any startup founder to have, and a good set of experience as well. And I'm here looking at your site right now at Ureed, and you can tell the background, the UX is super clean. Mission statements right up there. It's very easy to understand what the site's about, and look at all the different freelancers you have on your site. Look at their background. So good job on the Ureed experience. Yes. So
we actually have an amazing team, just as a disclaimer. So in case any of my team is listening to this is not me designing this. We have an amazing design team that worked on this, and they will continue always to improve the design. The beauty of the way we work at Ureed is that we never actually stop improving. We built the company on this experimentation mindset. So whenever we finish something, we start in the second iteration right away. And I guess this is something that a lot of startups in the Middle East started to adapt. Like huge companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Apple, they thrive on experimentation, and we try to implement that in our small way, basically. So whenever we finish like a landing page, we run it through several tests. We get people to give us feedback on it, and we immediately start, looking at the second and third and a fourth iteration. And as a user of Ureed, you're going to get to see the design improving over time.
Great. So I want to talk to you a little bit about building a marketplace. Now, as most people know, a marketplace is connecting two sets of people. In your case, as freelancers and maybe entrepreneurs or people who have a short-term requirement. So usually it's like a chicken or egg situation. So how did you start, and how were you able to get all these freelancers to register on your site and be part of your network?
So, see, the chicken or egg problem for our case in specific is solved pretty much. It's not chicken or egg. We know for a fact that you need supply first on a freelance marketplace, because employers are very tricky to recruit and get them to use your website. And they're constantly skeptical of what kind of talent do you have, the qualities you do, the vetting process. So we skipped all of this ahead by making sure that we have really, really amazing talent. So when we bring in the customer, we know for a fact that we can lock them. One tool that we use to our advantage, and I guess this is not available to all types of marketplaces, was enterprise clients, because we have a lot of them. And the way we do it is that when we get like a major project with, let's say, an e-commerce player or a data company that wants to hire hundreds of freelancers at a time, what we do is that we do mass recruitment to freelancers for this particular client. And we get them, basically on the platform, and we vet them and we make sure that they're good, and they can fulfill those promises that they give to employers. Later on, they stick to the platform. They don't leave after the project ends. You know what I mean? That was a great driver for us, because practically the client immediately tests and engages with this freelancer, and at the same time we get the benefit of investing in the recruitment process by making sure that those people are going to be repeated customers. Those freelancers are going to come back, apply for more jobs, and try to secure more projects for themselves. Another thing that we started doing recently, since the beginning of the year, we tried everything, right? So we tried the digital marketing to go and, run ads on Facebook or Google and try to get freelancers to sign up. We tried the private messaging route, where we go for very high value talent and try to recruit them manually. And last but not least, we tried communities. And this has been a proven effective method. What we do now is that instead of splashing money on digital marketing and trying to spend as much as we can to get as big number as we can, Facebook has this amazing feature, which is Facebook groups, right?
Yeah.
So if you are a web developer and you're invested in your job somehow, even if you're a freelancer, you want to connect with people who are like-minded, right? So we went to those Facebook groups and we started sponsoring them. So we found, let's say, a Facebook group specifically for Flutter developers, which is a very new language. It's 2-year-old, and a lot of clients are asking for it. So we went for the biggest Flutter group and we sponsored them, right? We have their cover photo sponsored by us. We post constantly content over them, and we encourage customers from the other side through promo codes to come and work with those developers, right?
Okay.
This approach might be more exhausting, right? Because you need to go through hundreds of groups and talk to the founders of those groups and manage expectations and make sure that the content they post about you is accurate and correct. But the yield is amazing. Like if you looked at the cost per acquisition for like Facebook ads, yes, you might get hundreds of applications, but how precise your targeting can be, how accurate, and how do you measure the quality of the people that applies, right?
Yeah.
But when we go to those communities, we know for a fact that the investment we're putting is, number one, long term, because all of those Flutter developers that are on the group will know about you.
Yeah.
And whenever they have the need to go to a freelance marketplace, you'll be their pick, you'll be their choice. Because
sure,
the beauty of other marketplaces, like let's say Airbnb, is that you might have this need constantly, right? I need to book a room, or I need to buy something from an e-commerce marketplace, or I need to order food, right? But for freelance marketplaces, for the employer side, you need to be constantly top of mind. I need to be always reminding them about myself. So whenever they have a need for a freelancer, they come to us. and I need to sell this dream to the freelancer as well. I need to ask them to come on board and spend, several hours building their profile, uploading their portfolio. In some cases, take some tests to validate their skills. So on the freelancer side, they need to put in some sort of an investment before they can start transacting on the marketplace.
Okay.
So we solve that through this, tight communication with them. We have an amazing customer service team that constantly talks to those freelancers. So instead of investing in just marketing, we invested in the experience itself.
That's a great tip. I've heard that from a couple of different entrepreneurs. Facebook groups is a great resource to get into a particular niche industry or a niche topic and to promote your business. But you have to be smart about how you promote yourself, because otherwise,
we did it in the most direct way possible. If you've ever been to, let's say, Cairo or Karachi or any big city, you'll find all the stores sponsored by Coca-Cola, right? They put those billboards and the name of the store with the Coca-Cola logo. That's exactly what we did with Facebook groups. We told them, we're going to sponsor your cover photo. So you don't need to spam your users about us. You need to write about us, let's say, once a month. But you always need to have us in the cover photo. So we basically rented a space at their group. So it's always constantly top of mind with those people.
Like a banner ad.
Absolutely. And it's much cheaper than Facebook or Google. It's practically free money for the group founder, and it's a great tool to hack your growth, basically.
Very interesting. Cool. So you were talking about vetting the freelancers that you guys receive. So what does that process look like, and how do you scale that?
That's a good question. So vetting in on itself is a very complicated process because it's subjective. And it's a little bit messy, to be honest. But the way we treated it is that we started with enterprise clients. We go and ask the customer, what kind of talent do you need? And on the other hand, the investment that we got from the investor, we're actually not always marketing, right? We're building assets. So one of the biggest assets that we own right now is test banks. So we hired top-notch industry experts in each of those verticals. We went for language services, we went and got someone who is a PhD in English, who developed for us an English test bank. For translation, we got an expert in translation and developed all those test banks. And it's a basic MCQ test, right? If you know the right answer and you worked it out on a piece of paper, the system can automate the result. So no human being needs to look at this test and determine whether or not you succeed. And we constantly rotate those questions so people wouldn't post them somewhere and basically give other people the answers. And there are now countless libraries and tools on the market for verticals like, let's say, software engineering. For other types of talent, what we do is that we do interviews. And what we did is that instead of having all this asset-heavy strategy of having hundreds of people working full-time for us to do those interviews, we started to outsource for good freelancers who we know for a fact that they're trusted and their experience is trusted. So if I ever worked with an amazing software architect who I know very, very good at their job and they know the languages they write, I basically hire them for a few hours every day or every week, and they do the vetting for us. So it becomes this kind of network effect. So when we have more freelancers, we're going to know more really good freelancers through our enterprise projects, and we'll be able to gradually scale that as we go up. But at the moment, we're avoiding any kind of manual labor or manual work needed from our operations team to deal with all of this vetting. And it's been working great for us, to be honest. And we give all of our customers this guarantee. The freelancer did not deliver as promised or did not meet your expectations. In 48 hours, you're going to get an immediate replacement, and we're going to bear the cost. So the customer wouldn't pay for someone that did not deliver or deliver something that is subpar or not as they expected.
So that's part of your promise that if the job doesn't get done, you will find a replacement?
Replace in 48 hours, absolutely.
Wow,
because
that's quite interesting.
We work with customers who currently hiring over 100 freelancers, right? One client hiring 100 freelancers. So there's definitely going to be someone in this 100 freelancers who are not a good fit, or they don't have enough time, or did not invest enough effort in the tasks that they're given.
Okay.
So this policy is basically a blank check. Like, there's a problem, we're going to fix it for you. It's our responsibility to source the talent for you. It's your responsibility as a customer to make it work for you.
Okay. So you guys handle all the payments directly and then pass it on to the freelancers at the end?
Absolutely. That's actually that's the key use case of a freelance marketplace. So
Right.
payments is at the core of everything we do. The reason why companies come to us is that they don't want to deal with individual payments. Imagine if you're hiring 100 freelancers. How's that going to look like? You know,
Right.
your balance sheet or your accounting team. So what we do is that the customer can either connect their credit cards, and we basically withdraw an amount of money whenever there is a new milestone that they're planning to do, or a new hourly logs on the system. And from the other hand, we automate all the payments to freelancers. So even if the client has a net 30 term, or it's an enterprise client that does not pay weekly, we pay the freelancers out of our pockets until the client settles their bills.
Okay.
So definitely we manage the entire process. So it's basically the client and the freelancer never have to ask about when I'm going to get the money. Oh, sorry, I just called my accountant. They're going to deal with this. No, they never have to deal with this anymore.
So you guys basically provide like an escrow service where...
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So you guarantee the payment to the freelancer as well as facilitate easy payment to your
employees.
Customers, employers.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, because I worked as a freelancer for a portion of my career, and it's painful. It's very difficult to deal with clients, especially here in the region. I never had any clients outside of the region, but I imagine it's the same issue everywhere.
Yeah.
But clients might be lazy. You know, there is a lot of red tape to deal with. Yeah. And for customers who wants an invoice and wants a company to build them, instead of, you know, having to hire a freelancer, we act as this mediator. So we have like government clients here in the UAE.
Right.
To hire a freelancer, you need like a minister's signature. It's a very difficult process. There's a lot of things that goes into play. So we're a registered company in the countries where we operate. So we can offer those companies an actual invoice, to account for what they did with those freelancers.
Yeah, speaking of which, I wanted to talk about the legal aspects of this. So, as you know, we live in UAE where you can't really demand money unless you have some kind of visa, an employment visa or a company. So how do you guys deal with that side of things?
So right now we're working actually with the UAE government on improving the conditions in which freelancers can live here and do their work. We're in very, the advanced talks about how can we, improve the legal framework for those people to have a very comfortable life here, and they wouldn't have to deal with a lot of legal hoops in order to make this work. So from my perspective, UAE government is the most advanced in the entire region when it comes to freelancers, and they embrace it massively. Like, I've heard many times from the UAE government that they want to become the freelance government of the world, right? So if you're a freelancer from, let's say, Australia, or I don't know, Poland or Singapore, you can come here and live and make great income while being a freelancer, and you don't have to pay taxes. So imagine being a freelancer in Europe, where you have to pay hundreds of thousands in taxes if you're a high-value freelancer. You can actually live here. It's a great country, great city, and they provide you with tons and tons of facilities, and you don't pay taxes, and you have a perfectly legal framework to work with. So moving forward, we're actually going to introduce more technical aspects to our product that would facilitate the experience of a registered freelancer in the UAE.
Okay. So are all the freelancers on your website registered with a freelance license or something like that in the UAE or around the region? Okay.
Because we have freelancers from across the region, unless the client requires the freelancer to submit their visa. then we
Okay.
do that. If they want to collect their money from the UAE or a UAE bank, they need to provide a valid UAE residency or a freelance
Okay.
visa for that.
Okay. What is the split that the freelancer receives? I see on your site that different freelancers have different hourly wages put on your site.
Yes.
So how
We
does
actually,
it,
how does it work? Sorry, yeah, come again.
so how does what is Ureed's cut of that, and how much does a freelancer make? In case some of our listeners are interested in being freelancers.
Yeah, we actually get a flat 20% cut on any transaction.
Okay.
But starting January, we're going to be introducing a new framework. By passing a certain threshold in your income, we're going to drop that to 10%. But
Okay.
right now, any like enterprise job or any opportunities that we found on the platform, when you set your pricing, we set expectations with you that the platform is going to take 20% cut.
Okay.
And we don't charge the employer anything, right? So the prices that are sent to the employer are tolerable, even with the 20% overhead that we charge to the freelancer transaction.
Okay. And I, as an employer, for instance, what does my process look like when I want to hire somebody on Ureed?
So there are two different models, right? There is an enterprise model where you can get a customer success manager to help you build your project documents, make sure that you have all the requirements, and they help you select the freelancers as well. It's like white glove service, that guarantees you that you're going to get top-notch talent. Or alternatively, you can go on the platform, register an account as an employer, and simply post a project. Once you post a project, we notify all the related talent. So if you post a project, let's say, saying I want to build a website with, let's say, JavaScript, or I want to build a website in WordPress, we notify all the freelancers who are related to this specialty in any way, shape, or form, and they need to come and pitch. And when they pitch, they can send you either a sample of their work. And of course, they have their portfolios on the profile. They can explain to you what they can do about this project or how they plan to approach it. And they include a price suggestion as well. So it's not a final price, because we usually see that the employers and freelancers negotiate before they basically start a contract together. But basically, you're going to get to see how those freelancers are priced based on geography. So you might get freelancers who are based in the UAE who might be a little bit more expensive than freelancers from Jordan or Egypt. However, some clients would require someone to be in the UAE in case they want to physically meet, or they wanted understanding of the local market or stuff like that. So once you get into an agreement, you start a contract, whereby you set the payment terms, how you're going to get paid. You can either do a project payment. So once you deliver the whole website, I'm going to pay you, let's say, $100. Or you can break it down into milestones, which is the thing that we see the most with majority of our clients, is that once you finish the design, I'll pay you a portion of the money. And then when the development starts, I'll pay another portion. And of course, once the contract starts, we take this money into escrow. So if I agreed with you on the first milestone to be, I'm going to design your homepage. So we agreed that the homepage design is going to cost you $100. So you can set that as a milestone. And once you do that, I take $100 and I put it in my escrow account. Once the employer is happy with the outcome, we release this money into the freelancer's wallet, where they can withdraw it into their bank account or anything like that. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So can we discuss a little bit about your international competitors?
Absolutely.
So I've used something like Upwork in the past, and it seems like Ureed is very similar in its foundation to how Upwork works, as opposed to something like Fiverr.
Fiverr is an e-commerce platform, so it's a bit different than what we offer.
Yeah, Fiverr sounds more like a gig thing, whereas I would go to Upwork for a bigger project.
Yeah, exactly. This is how even they describe themselves. They don't call themselves a freelance marketplace. It's an e-commerce platform. You have vendors who are posting products. You can buy a landing page, or you can buy a voiceover,
Yeah.
They productized freelancing. while we offer opportunity and we offer talent. So it's a bit different from what Fiverr offers.
Yeah. So in my past experience, whenever I've tried anything for my business with Fiverr, usually the quality is very poor most of the time. I tried like SEO services and a bunch of other things through Fiverr. It doesn't really work out, even though it's cheap. I don't think it's really worth it. But Upwork, on the other hand, I did do some software projects and all through that. But again, like the teams that they connected me with were in Pakistan and stuff, and it's a little difficult to, communicate and do all that. So I would definitely use something like Ureed in the future, maybe to connect with software developers in this region, so it's a bit easier to, do those tasks. And even for most new entrepreneurs, I would definitely suggest use a service like this. To build your MVP or something. Do you see a lot of that? Do you see new entrepreneurs coming and using your services to like build a minimum viable product or a quick landing page or something?
Absolutely. But we're actually seeing all the entrepreneurs in the region, they're going this direction. No one in the right mind would think, I need to start a company, let me hire a bunch of people, right? This has never been said for an entrepreneur who wants to raise money or build a great company, because you might fail. You might fail in the first week, you might fail in the first year. So you don't want to take all this major risk of hiring people and, covering all this overhead. So we're seeing three different use cases for marketplace, especially with entrepreneurs. We're seeing new entrepreneurs starting to, build a concept from scratch, and they're using freelancers for everything, not only building an MVP. I can get financial advice, or I can build a pitch deck, or I can get someone to be my virtual assistant because I have so many things to deal with. But like you said, majority of the use cases are related to software, right? So if I need to build a website or an app or a concept that I can take to investors, instead of going to a dev shop or going to, hire people full-time with me, I'm just going to experiment with freelancers in building a small concept. And then if I need to beef it up, maybe I can start hiring full-timers to take full ownership of this product. Right. And this is exactly what we did with Ureed, by the way. Like Ureed, the first version is built by freelancers. We didn't have, like back in January, we had 0 engineers on the team, right? We brought a bunch of freelancers and they built the first version of it. And right now we're rebuilding it again from scratch. And this first concept allowed us this much time, because we were able to pass to the market. We were able to experiment with a lot of growth metrics, and at the end of the day we were able to secure funding with this concept. The second use case that we're seeing a lot is experimentation. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs within companies that are highly driven individuals who wants to sell certain concepts or ideas to their managers or their executive teams. So we're seeing people who are coming from really great companies across the region who weren't giving access to either talent or budgets in their companies, and they want to prove a point. They want to either build a small concept to communicate it to their teams, or they want to sell their management teams or their board on a particular idea without investing a lot of money or distracting their team from their current plans. So we're seeing a shift in that manner. Like we're seeing major e-commerce players here, building concepts quickly, and then taking it to the development team to rebuild it again within their ecosystem. Okay. So it allows you to have this sandbox of experimentation. You can try a lot of ideas, and whatever sticks with you and whatever gets traction, even you can start taking it to the next level. The third thing that we're seeing is service providers as well. So companies, for example, in the verticals of translation, creative agencies, and even developing companies, their demand fluctuates substantially, right? So if you open today a development shop, you might get 5 projects this month, next month, no projects whatsoever. So instead of relying on full-timers, you would want freelancers because of diversity in experience. So I might need just one DevOps engineer to set up an AWS account for 5 days and then leave. I don't need someone full-time to do that. So we're seeing a lot of service providers coming to us and saying, can you help us, build capacity in this particular area for a very limited amount of time, because we don't want to bear this overhead.
Right.
And I think it's a smart strategy. I worked in many agencies throughout my career, and I helped open an office for a global agency back in Cairo for this particular reason. We had an extremely fluctuating demand, and had a lot of pitching to do to clients, and we didn't have enough resources. So investing money in freelancing, instead of hiring 2 people full time, you can actually distribute this budget across the year and have this flexibility in getting the best talent to always help you secure more projects and stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool. So you spoke about your funding and raising your seed round earlier. So I wanted to talk to you about that. How did you go about that? How long did the fundraising take? And how do you find this region when it comes to raising funds?
So, okay, we're actually very lucky because by the time we started looking for investments, COVID-19 news broke and everyone went to work from home. And we were the perfect opportunity in the perfect place, basically. We had the passion and the drive for freelancing, regardless of what the situation is. But this actually crisis amplified the need for a key player in freelancing here in the region. And we're so lucky and fortunate to have people who supports this idea. So for me, myself, because I don't want to tell people, yeah, it's easy, just go out there and you'll find the money left, right, and center. I understand it's a difficult process, but for us, it was quite simple because we are literally in the right time, the right place. So we've spoken to WAMDA and we've spoken to Innova about the idea back in January, and they were very excited about it and they wanted to help us grow. And when they basically saw the comparables, saw that there is no opportunity here in the region yet, there is no clear winner, there isn't any effort in building a marketplace like this, they were sold on the idea. And what we did basically is that we worked with them for the first 6 months before we even take any investment. We showed them what a growth trajectory would look like, right? So we worked with them closely without even asking, that please give us money. We didn't do that. In the beginning, we just showed them our process. We explained to them what we're doing exactly month over month, how our numbers look like, what kind of traction we're building so far. And we were having revenue. That's a killer in any investor conversation. Like I'm seeing a lot of startups, they look at the Kareem story and they look at the Sue story. I'm sure those stories are extremely inspiring, but those are 1 in thousands or 1 in a million, you can call it. So when we came to the investors and said, hey, we have clients, we have contracts for this much money, and we just need more people to help us get more of those contracts, right? We need more access to the region. We need to enter Saudi massively and talk to all those clients that they want to deal with freelancers. And they saw how this was amplified after COVID. We're seeing more and more clients asking for this service gradually. So it was a no-brainer kind of decision. Like, yeah, that should be something here in the region. And we're the only region that does not have a clear winner. When you look at, let's say, Asia or Latin America or the US or Europe or Australia, every certain continent has a clear winner. Like if you look at Southeast Asia and Australia, freelancer.com is killing it. When you look at Russia, Poland, East and West Europe, actually, you can see that Upwork is doing very well. Same for North America. And Latin America, they have Workana, which is the only platform that has both Spanish and Portuguese, but they're doing very well. And you're seeing more niche freelance marketplaces popping up as well that is highly focused on, let's say, places like San Francisco that has high demand in like software engineering, like TopTal and the likes of those platforms. And it's constantly growing. But for the Middle East, we've never had, and even Africa, by the way, there was never a clear winner in this space. People were relying on Upwork, but Upwork was never in Arabic. Upwork never entered this region or never had any presence or never had any interest for that part, right?
Right.
So by providing this localization framework and having the legal support for companies to work comfortably with freelancers, we're actually solving a very, very big problem for the region.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing you spoke about is at the beginning of this conversation is about Nabish. I think Nabish was the biggest freelance marketplace before you guys acquired them.
Yeah.
So how did that acquisition take place, and what was your thought process behind that?
So, like I said early back in January, before Rakan and I decided to open up to all verticals, we were pretty focused about two things: translation and content. That was our only service that we provided, and we did it very, very well with all of our clients, right? But then when we spoke to WAMDA and other investors in the region, and even our clients as well, they said that, we need a more comprehensive offering. We need to be able to tap into any vertical or any kind of professional service. So I don't have to go to so many different platforms and places in order to source the talent that I'm looking for. So it was an obvious strategy for us to expand into more verticals gradually. And at that time, Nabish was a portfolio company for WAMDA. So it made sense to consolidate. It made sense to have one true source and build this bigger force in the region to have the largest database and the largest user base, let's say, of freelancers. And at the same time, they accelerated a lot our ability to open up those verticals. So the moment we just restructured our tech to allow more verticals to be hired, immediately we have the supply base for it. And Nabish team already did an amazing job at building this equity in the market. They've spoken to hundreds and worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients across the region on this. So we're seeing a very positive outcome from Nabish customers as well. And they come to us and say, hey, I used to work with Nabish. Do you guys offer more services? And we do. And we offer this kind of support that never existed as well. You have like a customer success team helping the client source this talent. We're doing vetting. We're doing a lot of acquisition activities to add more and more technologies and new skills that never existed before. So Nabish for us was a great source of acceleration, but a great source of inspiration as well. So we didn't have to go through a lot of things. Like I imagine they went through a lot of cultural moments where people were just right out rejecting working with freelancers. So I think the team at Nabish actually helped push this culture a little bit further to make sure that people are more accepting of the fact that you can actually work with freelancers and have a great outcome.
Awesome. So I guess that worked out great for you guys. You were able to build extra verticals and I guess get some talent from Nabish as well.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Before we wind up this conversation, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about your background in customer acquisition and digital marketing and stuff. Do you have any advice for new founders about getting your first few customers or experimenting with different customer acquisition strategies? What would you suggest?
So see, the customer acquisition can be done in so many different ways, right? So you can go the traditional route of, going door to door to find your first B2B customers. You can always spam people on social media with ads to get them to sign up. But my point of view worked in the creative industry as well, that your messaging and your story can be far more powerful than the tool that's used for distribution, because people confuse digital marketing with communication, right? Because digital marketing is just a tool to distribute your communication. So if you invested time and effort and thinking and brought a lot of expertise into building your story and how this story will look like, I think this will help you a lot in saving a lot of money. Because in customer acquisition, it's not about making money, it's about saving money. Because for a fact, you're going to invest in building a customer base, getting your first few customers into the door before they can start using their service and then decide whether to stick around or leave. But the issue is that a lot of founders that come and talk to me about this, even procuring our services or as clients, they tell me, I want to spend this much I want to reach those people without really taking care of the messaging itself.
Right.
So what we try to focus on is that, yes, smart distribution is important. So don't go and splash all your cash on ads. You need to be careful and gradual in the way you approach this.
Mm-hmm.
And messaging is a far more powerful tool, and you need to invest a lot more time and effort into, rather than just focusing on the distribution component or how you're going to reach those people, right? When it comes to distribution in on itself,
Mm-hmm.
paid ads is only one tool, right? Because some founders, they think if I need customers, that equals to, paid ads. Paid ads is just one way of doing it. You have tons and tons of different opportunities. You can build a great blog, you can build a podcast like the one we're on right now that would attract hundreds of people to join your platform. You can invest in your SEO so people in market for your service can find you. You can tap into Facebook groups like we talked earlier. So there are hundreds of other tools at your disposal that you can always use to drive this. And after the moment you get them on board, you need to work hard on keeping them on board, right? So
Right.
I'd invest in this. I wouldn't invest a lot of money in just acquisition. I'd focus my money on activation and retention, because this is how you're going to prove to investors or otherwise to, invest in your company. Like, people are sticking around and using the service constantly. So there might be something.
Cool. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think people often overlook the conversion factor. Like, you can easily find out how much it might cost you to get 1,000 people to your site, but like, how do those 1,000 people, how many people are actually gonna check out or like pay you for your services? It really depends on what you were talking about: your messaging, your user experience, your
100%.
customer journey.
And by the way, this is what media companies are selling this to you. Like, if you go to a media agency right now, and I was part of this industry for the longest time, they will sell you CPMs. They will tell you, we'll get you this many clicks or this many impressions, because at the end of the day, they are a distributor. They'll take your ad and put it in front of people, regardless of what the outcome would be.
Sometimes in front of bots as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, ad fraud is a big problem in the industry.
Yeah, and I do find that Google especially is quite an expensive customer acquisition medium. Content like, we've used a lot of content marketing at Ajarkar. We're a car rental marketplace. So we found it super effective when we produce like YouTube content about the cars. Like, we do a review of the car and then we, plug our company in the middle of the YouTube video or something. It gets organic reach. People are searching for that content anyway. Same with our blog as well. I feel that's been a more effective. It might not drive as much traffic as paid mediums, but it converts a lot better.
Absolutely. And those people are in market for your service. They're actively looking to rent a car or buy a car, right? So instead of going and advertising to people who are not driving or do not even have a driving license, you're actually promoting only precisely for the target market who would be interested in your service. And for us as a freelance marketplace, we target for a very, very specific type of people. So you don't want to go and reach everyone. You want to reach people who are in market or people who would use a service like this.
Okay, cool. I wanted to ask you, along your journey of building Ureed, what do you think has been a big mistake that you guys made along the way?
Mistakes are going to happen, with any new company or any entrepreneurship experience. I think part of the reward of it is that you get to learn a lot from those mistakes. And I think one of the biggest mistakes is deciding on how to build the product, right? Because a lot of time we were overwhelmed with looking at global marketplaces. We looked at platforms like, let's say, Upwork and Fiverr and TopTal, and we started comparing ourselves. Like, how come they have this feature and we don't? Or how come, they're better at us at this? And we started pushing ourselves to deliver everything at one time so we can be immediately compared to this marketplace, right? And that proven to be a huge, huge mistake, because number one, we didn't listen to the user. We didn't, understand what the Middle Eastern or the Middle East-based a buyer or seller would need in a service like this. And number two, we rushed ourselves, so we did not focus on the quality of the feature. So yes, we delivered so many different functions and things in the marketplace, but we found ourselves having to rebuild it again because it wasn't really built for the people here. It was built based on a comparison with another marketplace. So that was an expensive mistake for sure, because you spend a lot of time and effort doing this. But right now we actually avoid looking at other marketplaces and compare ourselves. We started listening more to the users, what they want. Like a lot of people said, you know what, I want to call the freelancer. I don't want to, use your video service. I want to use Zoom instead. So we started listening to this kind of feedback, and right now we're integrating Zoom into the marketplace, right? So you'll be able to have a Zoom call inside your chat box instead of having, to text the number in a different way and then try, to go around the system in order to have a call with the freelancer. Right. And we started providing more trust in the process. So a lot of those global marketplaces would mask the name, and you're not allowed to send an email or a number or anything like that.
That's extremely frustrating. Yeah,
it is. So we left it open because if you like the platform and you like the talent on it, you don't want to go outside, right? As a freelancer, you don't want to go through the hassle of getting paid by bank transfer or PayPal. Yeah. And as an employer, you want this kind of protection that we provide you in case things did not work out. So we left it open for people to transact, and if they want to use our payment methods and use our protection policies, they're welcome on the platform. If they want to go outside, that's their choice, basically. So yeah,
I think that's a great move. One of the very frustrating things about Upwork is trying to get around their systems still, try and connect with the freelancer. I don't mind paying through Upwork, as you said, because it gives me protection in the transaction, and it gives the freelancer protection as well, so that if I don't pay or something. But this whole working around their system to try and just talk to the freelancer that you're working with doesn't really make sense, and when you have very complicated projects that you're working on.
Yeah, that's the hard decisions that you need to make in the beginning, what to let go of. Imagine Dubizzle, for example, decided you're not allowed to talk to the buyer. It will never work, right?
Yeah.
So it needs to be integrated somehow with my existing ecosystem of things, how I talk to people. We're looking at a WhatsApp integration right now. So when you post a job and someone applies for it, you get a WhatsApp notification. So we're looking into those kinds of things that would make the experience feels natural. Yeah, all those global marketplaces try to create a very broad experience that would fit anyone in any geography. No, we're actually focusing only on this geography. So that's what makes us different.
Great. And before we end, any advice for new founders looking to start their first company?
I have a lot of advice actually for them. The first thing that would be is don't try to implement all your ideas at once. Try to limit your scope. Try to say no to new ideas. Try to limit your scope as much as you can to get to an MVP. Because I see this, I fell into this mistake. This was my first time to become, a co-founder in any way. I had so many ideas. I was, blossoming with ideas in the beginning, but it's proven to be difficult to implement. So experimentation is important. Try small experiments and then see how it yields before you invest a lot of time and effort into it. And always start small, even when you commit to something. Like when you commit with investors, you don't need to overpromise and under-deliver. You can always walk them through your process, gradually promise things that you can deliver and will deliver in the beginning, and always account for black swans. No one expected, COVID to hit, and it hit anyway, right? So always account for what's the worst that can happen and plan based on that. And stay strong. Don't give up. I promised you at the beginning of the call that I'd say something fluffy, but this is actually quite true. Because there were many moments in this experience where I said, what did I do? What did I do for myself? I had a great job and it was very comfortable. Why did I do this? But actually, when you get to see the outcome of all the hard work that you do, it's very, very rewarding. You forget about all of that very, very quickly.
Great, man. Thank you so much for your advice. I think that's great advice for anybody. I think entrepreneurs often make the mistake of, being overly ambitious with their projects and putting every single feature under the sun. I made that mistake as well. It's probably the worst mistake you can make because it, you know, like increases your costs and your time to market and affects the quality of your product. Is just a bad thing to do. So I definitely agree with that. Go with the minimum viable, the minimum set of features that you need to go live. Anyway, Marwan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was great talking to you. Ureed seems like it's got a great ecosystem, and you guys look like you're doing some really great stuff. So looking forward to use Ureed in the future myself. And
and there is a promo code right now that you can use. Sorry, this is a shameless plug.
We have go ahead.
October 20 promo code. It's right now on the website. You can try it, and you'll get $20 in your wallet, so you can hire your first freelancer practically for free.
Nice.
So you can give this platform a try. Yeah.
Perfect. So we will leave a link to Ureed in the description along with the promo code for this podcast. So you guys can go check that out. Anything else you want to say before we end this podcast?
I ran out of things to say, man. Just, stay safe from COVID. Working from home is great. A lot of people adapted to it. So we're excited to give this opportunity to everyone across the board.
Great. So this podcast is available on all the podcast platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. You can leave us a voice message on Anchor. If you guys have any questions for Marwan, we'd be happy to take a voice message and forward it to him. Maybe if you guys have a question about Ureed or anything about the industry. He's got a digital background as well. So if you guys have questions, we'll pass it along. And thank you for listening. Make sure you leave us a review. It really helps us spread the word about the podcast and ranks us on all these platforms. So thank you so much for listening and keep on hustling.